Alexandria, Egypt, 44 BC. The Mediterranean laps against limestone harbors where the great library once stood as a beacon of knowledge. Cleopatra VII rules from her palace, commanding an empire that stretches from the cataracts of the Nile to the shores of Cyprus. But tonight, something unprecedented approaches her kingdom. 3 stealth submarines breach the surface 20 miles offshore, their hulls barely disturbing the ancient waters. 32 Navy SEALs emerge, the most elite warriors the modern world has ever produced, armed with technology that would seem like magic to any ancient observer. What happens when the pinnacle of 21st century warfare meets one of history's most sophisticated ancient civilizations? This isn't just about guns versus swords. This is about strategy, logistics, and the brutal mathematics of conquest when you're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. It's a standard SEAL team deployment. But instead of facing modern terrorists or enemy combatants, they're tasked with something impossible: capture and hold the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt. 32 operators, each carrying enough firepower to level a small town, but facing an empire of nearly 4 million people. The odds seem laughable until you consider what these men bring to the fight. Each SEAL carries a suppressed M4 carbine with advanced optics, night vision that turns darkness into their greatest advantage, and enough ammunition to engage hundreds of enemies. The heavy weapons team brings M240 machine guns capable of sustained fire at ranges that would astound ancient warriors. Designated marksmen carry precision rifles effective beyond 800 meters, distances where Egyptian archers couldn't even see their targets clearly. Body armor protects them from bronze weapons that were cutting-edge technology 3,000 years ago. But here's the catch. They have exactly what they can carry. No resupply, no air support, no extraction. In intense combat, a SEAL team can burn through 2,000 rounds in a single engagement. Their entire ammunition supply might last 3 or 4 major battles before running critically low. Night vision batteries give them perhaps a week of operations if used sparingly. Medical supplies are limited, and food runs out in days. Against them stands an empire at its peak. Cleopatra commands professional armies trained in Greek and Egyptian military traditions. The Ptolemaic military includes heavily armored infantry, fighting in phalanx formations, cavalry units, siege engines, and a navy that controls the eastern Mediterranean. The royal guard consists of elite warriors who've trained since childhood. Beyond the professional military, Egypt can call upon hundreds of thousands of militia, farmers, and conscripts. Alexandria itself presents unique challenges. Unlike Sparta's scattered villages, this is a massive urban center, with over 500,000 inhabitants. The palace complex sprawls across the royal quarter, protected by walls, gates, and hundreds of guards. The city's layout includes narrow streets perfect for ambushes, but also broad avenues where defenders can mass quickly. The harbor fortifications include catapults and ballistae that could threaten even modern vessels. So how do 32 men even attempt this impossible mission? The answer lies in leveraging their greatest advantage, the element of complete technological superiority combined with surgical precision. The operation begins at night, naturally. Their night vision allows them to navigate between patrol boats and harbor defenses invisible to ancient eyes. The first objective isn't conquest, but intelligence. Small teams infiltrate the city to map guard rotations, identify key targets, and locate Cleopatra herself. Drones, silent and invisible to ancient observers, scout the palace complex and surrounding areas. The SEALs need to understand exactly where power centers lie before making any aggressive moves. Here's where it gets interesting. Unlike other ancient civilizations, Ptolemaic Egypt is highly centralized. Remove Cleopatra and her immediate circle, and the entire administrative structure becomes paralyzed. The queen controls not just military command, but religious authority, economic policy, and diplomatic relations. She is literally the keystone holding the entire kingdom together. The assault begins with coordinated strikes across the royal quarter. Teams move through Alexandria's streets like ghosts, neutralizing sentries with suppressed weapons before anyone can raise an alarm. Breaching charges blow through palace gates, while sniper teams establish overwatch positions on nearby rooftops. The machine gun teams set up choke points to prevent reinforcements from reaching the palace. Inside the palace complex, room clearing happens methodically. Bronze weapons and linen armor provide no protection against modern firearms. Guards who might have been feared warriors in their time fall to opponents they never see coming. The SEALs reach Cleopatra's chambers within minutes of beginning their assault. capturing the queen and her immediate advisors before organized resistance can form. But capturing Alexandria's rulers is only the beginning. Holding power requires a completely different strategy. 32 men cannot patrol a city of 500,000 people. Instead, they must leverage fear, information control, and strategic positioning to maintain dominance while their limited resources slowly diminish. The SEALs establish fortified positions at critical infrastructure points. They seize the grain warehouses that feed the city, the harbor facilities that control trade, and the administrative centers where tax collection and governance occur. Machine gun nests overlooking main squares discourage large gatherings. Sniper teams in elevated positions maintain psychological pressure on potential resistors. Cleopatra becomes their most valuable asset. Paraded before crowds under armed guard, she delivers proclamations written by her captors. The queen's divine authority, so central to Ptolemaic rule, now serves to legitimize the occupation. Religious ceremonies continue but under SEAL supervision. The bureaucracy keeps functioning but follows new orders delivered at gunpoint. Food becomes currency and control mechanism. Anyone who cooperates receives rations. Those who resist face starvation. The SEALs use their limited medical supplies to treat cooperative officials while denying care to potential troublemakers. Information warfare proves as important as firepower. Rumors spread that the invaders possess godlike powers, that resistance is futile, that cooperation leads to prosperity. However, cracks in their control appear quickly. News of the capture spreads beyond Alexandria through merchant networks and diplomatic channels. Roman legions in Syria receive reports of unprecedented events in Egypt. Ptolemaic governors in Cyprus and Upper Egypt begin mobilizing their own forces. Most critically, the professional military units stationed throughout the kingdom start marching toward the capital. By the third day, Egyptian forces begin probing the city's defenses. Small groups of soldiers infiltrate Alexandria to scout SEAL positions and test their responses. Each engagement costs precious ammunition and reveals tactical information to increasingly organized enemies. The psychological impact of modern weapons begins wearing off as people realize the invaders bleed and die like anyone else. The mathematics become brutal. Each SEAL might face odds of 500 to 1 or higher. Even with their technological advantages, sustained combat burns through resources faster than victories accumulate. A single wounded operator reduces combat effectiveness significantly. Equipment failures in the desert climate create cascading problems. Egyptian forces adapt faster than expected. After losing men to sniper fire, they begin using shields and covered approaches. When machine gun nests prove deadly, they coordinate attacks from multiple directions to overwhelm single positions. Some commanders start using human shields, forcing moral dilemmas that complicate SEAL rules of engagement. By the fifth day, the situation becomes untenable. Ammunition supplies drop to critical levels. Several SEALs are wounded, reducing effective strength. Egyptian forces mass outside the city in numbers that make defense impossible. The Royal Navy blockades the harbor, cutting off any escape route. Food and water become scarce as supply lines completely break down. Two scenarios emerge from this point. In the first, the SEALs attempt a fighting withdrawal, using their remaining supplies to break through Egyptian lines and escape along the coast. This requires abandoning their captives and admitting mission failure, but potentially allows some operators to survive. The second option involves a last stand using Cleopatra as a bargaining chip. The SEALs threaten to execute Egypt's queen unless granted safe passage and negotiations for favorable terms. This creates a desperate standoff where both sides face catastrophic losses. Egyptian commanders must choose between saving their ruler and accepting foreign domination or sacrificing her to eliminate the threat. Neither scenario results in lasting conquest. Even if the SEALs somehow maintain control for weeks, governing an empire requires administrative skills, cultural knowledge, and resources they simply don't possess. Tax collection stops, trade collapses, religious authority crumbles, the kingdom fragments as regional commanders declare independence or Roman forces intervene. The broader historical implications would be staggering. News of Alexandria's fall would spread throughout the ancient world within months. Roman reaction would be swift and overwhelming, as they couldn't tolerate any threat to Mediterranean stability. Other kingdoms might seek similar mysterious allies, fundamentally altering the balance of power. Yet perhaps the most profound impact would be technological. Captured weapons and equipment would puzzle ancient minds, but potentially inspire innovations. Egyptian craftsmen examining modern materials might develop new metallurgical techniques. Medical supplies could advance healing practices. Even fragments of modern knowledge might accelerate scientific development by centuries. But here's the reality check. Could 32 Navy SEALs actually conquer Ptolemaic Egypt? For a brief moment, with perfect execution and maximum luck, they might seize control of Alexandria and capture its rulers. The shock value alone could freeze opposition for days. However, holding an empire requires capabilities no military unit possesses alone, regardless of technological superiority. The logistics are simply impossible. 32 men cannot govern 4 million people across thousands of square miles. They cannot collect taxes, maintain infrastructure, or command armies in distant provinces. The ancient world would eventually adapt and overcome even seemingly impossible technological advantages through numbers, persistence, and ingenuity. History shows that temporary military superiority rarely translates to permanent political control without comprehensive planning and adequate resources. So while 32 Navy SEALs might briefly terrorize Alexandria and capture its queen, actually conquering and holding the Ptolemaic kingdom remains beyond their capabilities, regardless of their advanced training and equipment. Sometimes the most interesting question isn't whether something is possible, but what happens when unstoppable force meets immovable object and both discover their limitations.